Aisha Johnson woke early with a light in her chest. Today was special. She and Marcus would celebrate their 5th wedding anniversary. Marcus was the CEO of a rising airline, and Aisha loved how he poured his heart into his work. She slipped on a soft blue dress that matched her calm mood. She packed her favorite scarf, a gift from Marcus's last Christmas, and kissed their dog Luna before leaving the house. In the car, she thought of the gentle voice that had woken her each morning since they married, the steady warmth in his smile, and how her heart beat a little faster whenever he called just to say he loved her. At Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, Aisha felt at home among the crowds. She moved with easy confidence through the terminal, her carry-on tucked under her arm. A friendly agent at Marcus's airline desk greeted her by name. She blinked in surprise at the agent's bright smile and polite tone, and she returned the greeting with a grateful nod. Soon, she wound her way through security and found herself at Gate B23. The boarding sign glowed softly over rows of seats, and Aisha's excitement built. First class awaited her, and she pictured the wide leather seats, the pillows soft as clouds, and the gourmet dishes served on gleaming trays. She tucked her phone in her bag to fully savor the moment. When the crew finally called first-class passengers to board, Aisha stepped onto the jet bridge with a steady step. The air felt cooler inside, and a pleasant hush wrapped around her. She passed attendants who offered warm smiles and welcoming words. One of them, a young woman with bright eyes, guided her to seat 1A. The chair itself looked like a small sofa, wide and plush. Aisha settled into it and let out a quiet sigh of contentment. She felt like royalty in a world that she did not often enter. Passengers in the row beside her chatted softly or read newspapers. A gentle hum of engines promised a smooth flight. After a moment, a flight attendant appeared at her side. Aisha smiled at her and reached for the menu folder that lay on the menu. Little table in front of her, the eager fingers, she opened it, ready to read about the local farm eggs, the fresh fruit sorbet, the rosemary chicken that Marcus had once praised when he described his own trips. She glanced at the menu header and then at the attendant, who met her gaze without a smile. Aisha asked, "Could I see the first-class dinner options, please?" The attendant's face remained calm, but her words stumbled out softly. "Sorry, ma'am. Today we aren't carrying the premium first-class meals on this flight. I can offer you the standard economy option instead." Aisha froze. Her hand hovered over the menu folder. Economy option? She blinked, certain she had misunderstood. "I'm in first class," she said slowly. "I believe I'm entitled to the first-class menu." The attendant looked uneasy. She glanced at the folder in Aisha's hand, then pressed a finger to her lips, thinking, I'm very sorry, ma'am." The decision came from the catering team. "We're out of the special meals. I can give you the regular chicken salad or pasta." Aisha's heart sank. All around her, other passengers already enjoyed their appetizers from white porcelain plates, garnished with fresh herbs that smelled of a garden in the morning sun. Drew in a breath and forced a small smile. She did not want to cause a fuss. She thought of Marcus and how he had flown all over the world, tasting menus and meeting chefs. She remembered how he described those large cabins with pride, how he said, "Every detail matters, Aisha, because every passenger matters." A flash of hurt crossed her mind. Was she not a passenger worth those details today? She felt her cheeks flush, a warm shade of hurt and embarrassment. Oh, she looked to her neighbor, an older woman reading a novel. Their eyes met, and the woman gave her a sympathetic smile. Aisha nodded back, thankful for the silent friendship. As the economy tray arrived, a modest sandwich and a small bag of chips, Aisha tried to keep her expression neutral. She placed the tray on the table and picked at the plastic-wrapped sandwich. It tasted fine, but it did not feel like the celebration she had imagined. She took gentle, measured bites, all the while glancing down the aisle at passengers who laughed quietly over glasses of sparkling juice and plates of colorful salads. A soft knot formed in her throat. She searched for a way to swallow the disappointment. She thought of Marcus in his office. He had left early to watch over a scheduled change and would not know of her travels until later. Calls and meetings. She did not want to interrupt him on the day they were meant to celebrate each other. Still, a small voice in her head wondered, would he recognize that something was wrong? She stared out the window at the curled clouds below. The sky glowed gold, and she thought of how Marcus always said she lit up his life like dawn. She blinked away a tear that tried to fall. The flight attendant checked back a few minutes later. Aisha lifted her eyes politely. The attendant bowed, her head slightly. "I'm sorry again for the confusion, ma'am. Please let me know if there's anything else you need." Aisha shook her head. "No, thank you," she said, her voice soft but steady. The attendant smiled weakly before stepping away. Aisha closed her eyes for a moment and grounded herself. She took out the scarf from her bag, the one Marcus had given her hand, breathed in its familiar scent. She remembered his laughter and the way he squeezed her hand when they walked in the park. She focused on those memories, each one a small light that pushed away the shadow of discomfort. She opened her eyes and straightened in her seat. She reached for her phone and sent a quick message. "On board and safe. Loading now." She paused before hitting send. She added a heart emoji. Almost immediately, a reply popped up from Marcus. "Can't wait to hear all about it tonight. Love you." She stared at the words. "Love you." The screen glowed softly in the cabin light. She tapped a response. "Love you too. See you soon." A gentle vibration on her armrest alerted her that the pilot was starting the pre-flight checks. A few minutes later, the engines rumbled and the plane began to roll. Aisha felt the familiar lift as they climbed into the sky. She rested her head on the cushion, looked out at the horizon where the sun slid away, and allowed herself to feel calm again. The missed meal felt like a small cloud passing in her day, one that she knew Marcus would help clear away once he found out. She focused on the gentle rocking of the plane, the soft hum around her. She pictured the mother bird teaching her chicks to fly, the smooth spread of wings, and the trust in each journey. She felt gratitude for being in this moment, safe and loved, even if something had gone wrong. As the cabin lights dimmed for the meal service, Aisha closed her eyes and let herself rest. She thought of the evening to come, the stories they would share in a quiet corner of the lounge, and the laughter that would fill their anniversary dinner. She breathed in slowly and smiled. Tomorrow, she knew, the story of this flight would end with a warm fix, one made by the man who loved her most. And right now, under the soft glow of the cabin nightlight, she let her heart find peace once more. Aisha woke to the gentle sound of the seatbelt sign turning off. She opened her eyes slowly, blinking against the soft cabin light. She reached for her phone, curious about what time it was and how far they had flown. A short message from her friend Carla glowed on the screen. It read, "Hey, are you okay? I heard about the meal mix-up. Let me know if you need anything." Aisha's heart warmed at Carla's kindness. She tapped a quick reply. "Thanks, I'm fine. Just surprised. Soon." She put her phone away and leaned back in her seat. The memory of the plastic-wrapped sandwich still lingered on her tongue, but she refused to let it spoil the trip. She smoothed her dress and looked around first class. The section was quiet now. Many passengers slept, their heads resting against the softly lit windows. One woman a few rows ahead gently rubbed her husband's hand as he dozed. A little boy in the last row of first class clutched a stuffed bear. Warm blankets covered laps like soft clouds. Aisha's mind drifted to Marcus. She wondered if he had seen Carla's message. He was busy in his office at headquarters, fielding scheduled changes and meeting with senior staff. She could imagine him pausing in the middle of a call to glance at his phone. She thought of the look in his eyes. When he realized something was wrong, how he would shift from calm CEO to caring husband in a heartbeat. She smiled at the thought and gently traced the outline of the scarf in her lap. Suddenly, her phone buzzed again. Aisha reached for it and saw Marcus's name on the screen. Her fingers trembled slightly as she answered. Said softly. On the other end, Marcus's voice sounded strong but worried. "Aisha, are you all right? I got a note from Carla that something happened on board. Tell me what's going on." Aisha swallowed and took a breath. "Marcus, the first-class meals ran out." I was given the regular economy tray instead. She paused, studying his reaction. The gentle hum of the plane faded for her as Marcus's voice tightened with concern. What? You're joking? It can't happen on my airline, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure, she said, choosing each word carefully. I asked twice. The attendant said the catering team forgot to load the premium meals. They offered me chicken salad or pasta. She sounded calm, but her chest felt heavy. Marcus sighed deeply, the kind of slow breath that carried both relief at hearing her voice and frustration at the situation. Okay, stay there. Don't eat anything else. I'll sort this out right now. He didn't ask more questions. He ended the call, and Aisha felt the warmth of his love even through the phone. A hush settled over her first-class seat again. Aisha leaned back and let the cabin lull her senses. She watched the clouds drift past the window before her. They looked like giant marshmallows scattered over an endless blue field. She felt tired despite the adrenaline of the call. She closed her eyes for a moment and pictured Marcus striding through the headquarters, determination in his steps. Felt proud of him, proud of how he cared. Meanwhile, back on the ground, Marcus moved quickly. He told his assistant to contact airport operations. He phoned the catering manager and demanded details. He learned that a miscommunication had caused one truck of meals not to be loaded. He felt a sting of disappointment in his chest. His team prided itself on seamless service. He thought of Aisha sitting up in that plush seat, expecting the special menu, only to be handed a pale sandwich and a plastic bag of chips. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the service elevator. A flurry of staff followed in his wake. Reached the tarmac entrance, where a catering van sat idling. The driver, surprised to see the CEO at this hour, jumped out and saluted awkwardly. Marcus asked for the first-class meals. The driver pointed back at the truck. Marcus counted 8 boxers labeled Premium First Class. He shook his head, frustrated that they had overlooked them. By now the catering manager had joined them. She bowed her head in apology and explained the mistake. Marcus listened calmly, absorbing each detail. Yes. He asked her to deliver the meals to the plane immediately. He then told her to review procedures and report back with a plan to prevent this in the future. He spoke not to scold, but to improve. He cared about his team's growth as much as his passengers' comfort. High above the earth, Aisha sat patiently. She admired how the cabin lights reflected off the brushed metal trim. She pictured Marcus striding across the tarmac, coordinating a quick fix. She closed her eyes and let the vibration of the engines rock her gently. Minutes passed, filled only with soft white noise and the occasional call of the intercom. Suddenly, her attendant returned. The woman carried a gleaming aluminum tray covered by a white cloth. She approached Aisha with a tentative smile. Ms. Johnson, I apologize again for the earlier confusion. Here is your first-class dinner as you originally requested. With careful hands, she lifted the cloth. Underneath lay a small salad of mixed greens, tender strips of chicken in a lemon herb dressing, a side of roasted vegetables, and a warm roll. Aisha's heart fluttered with relief. Thank you, she whispered, touched by the apology. The attendant's eyes softened. I'm very sorry for the mistake, she said. Please enjoy. She left the meal beside Aisha's seat and bowed slightly before walking away. Aisha took hold of the fork and tasted the salad. The greens were crisp, the chicken juicy, and the dressing bright. She closed her eyes and savored the flavors. She felt her spirits lift. Her cheeks warmed with happiness as the meal felt like more than food. It was an act of care from her husband reaching across the miles. She had just taken a bite of the roasted vegetables when the flight attendant returned a third time. Behind her came Marcus himself. He moved with authority and calm. His suit was crisp, and his eyes held both apology and love. Aisha sat up straight, surprised to see him. Hello, sweetheart, Marcus said softly, leaning down to kiss her forehead. His voice carried a gentle tremor of emotion. I'm so sorry you went through this. He gestured to the attendant. Thank you for fixing this so quickly. The attendant nodded and retreated to the aisle. Aisha stood to embrace him. She felt his arms wrap around her, strong and reassuring. She rested her head against his chest and listened to his steady heartbeat. She closed her eyes and felt safe again. When she pulled back, she could see proud tears in his eyes. "I really am sorry," he repeated. "I should have been there sooner." She reached up to touch his face. "It's okay," she said. "You made it right." He smiled and guided her back into her seat. He sat in the seat beside hers, folding his seatbelt carefully. He picked up the half-eaten tray and let the remaining food rest on his own table. "Let me finish this for you," he said with a playful grin. She laughed softly, her eyes sparkling. He took a bite of the chicken and nodded appreciatively. "This is good," he said, "just like you said it would be." She blushed at the compliment. He reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. They ate in companionable silence for a few moments, watching the clouds glide by. Other passengers leaned forward to watch quietly, smiling at the couple. Aisha felt her heart swell with love and gratitude. She knew the rest of the flight would be smooth and warm because her husband had set things right. When they finished, Marcus leaned back and looked at her with soft eyes. "Happy anniversary, my love," he said, brushing a strand of hair. Behind her ear, she smiled and leaned toward him. "Happy anniversary," she whispered. For the rest of the flight, they talked about the years they had shared. They recalled their wedding day, the laughter of friends, the tears of joy. They remembered the small moments, morning coffee in the kitchen, evening walks in the park, the way they held each other when storms passed through their city. The plane's gentle hum became the backdrop to their memories. Aisha felt a warm glow spread through her. The earlier mix-up seemed like a distant cloud now. Marcus's presence turned the mistake into a story they would laugh about in years to come. She rested her head on his shoulder, content in the soft hum of the cabin and the steady warmth beside her. The journey continued on its path to New York, but Aisha no longer thought of seats or meals. She thought only of Marcus and the love that lifted her above any small worry. And as the plane soared through the night sky, she felt a promise unfold. In her heart, together, they could turn any mistake into a moment of care and connection. Marcus stepped off the plane with steady strides. His suit jacket brushed against his trousers, and his shoes clicked on the jet bridge. He felt the cool air of the airport terminal greet him like a gentle handshake. As he moved toward the lounge doors, his mind raced with questions. How could his airline let this happen? How could anyone assume Aisha did not belong in first class? He held his phone in one hand and closed his eyes for a moment, breathing deeply. He reminded himself that his job was not only to lead, but to listen and to fix mistakes. Inside the quiet lounge, Marcus found the operations manager, Mr. Lee. Waiting by a sleek counter, Lee bowed his head in greeting, his face lined with concern. "Sir, I heard about the issue on your wife's flight. I am very sorry." Marcus nodded and gestured to a nearby seating area. They sat on soft chairs, the leather cool under their hands. Outside the large glass windows, caterer trucks and ground vehicles moved like ants in a carefully choreographed dance. Marcus began calmly. "Tell me exactly what happened," he said. His voice carried the weight of leadership, yet held kindness. He took a breath and explained that a change in catering orders had caused confusion. 2 first-class meal crates were left behind during loading. They discovered the error too late to send backup service before departure. "We tried to adjust," Lee said, "but we did not handle it well with Ms. Johnson. I take full responsibility." Marcus leaned back and let the words settle. He studied Lee's face. He saw regret there. He recalled the moment Aisha waited for her first-class menu and was offered only economy food. He remembered her quiet dignity at the disappointment. He thought of the many passengers who trusted his airline to treat them with respect. He spoke softly. "I'm glad you own this. Now we need a plan to make sure it never happens again." Lee's eyes brightened with relief at Marcus's tone. "Yes, sir, I agree. I've already started drafting a new checklist for catering teams. We will add a verification step before the truck leaves the kitchen." Marcus smiled, sensing Lee's genuine commitment. "Good. And we need to train our crew to handle mistakes with empathy. If a passenger is hurt, we must offer more than an apology. We must offer immediate, thoughtful care." Lee nodded, scribbling notes on a pad. They spoke for another half hour. Lee promised to review catering schedules, improve communication channels, and hold a workshop on bias awareness, Marcus added. We should also have a roster of senior managers on call. If a high-profile passenger encounters an issue, we send someone to resolve it quickly. My wife's situation showed me that even small mistakes can harm our reputation, and more importantly, our people's trust. With the plan in place, Marcus stood and shook Lee's hand firmly. Thank you for stepping up, he said. Lee smiled, relieved, and energized. Marcus headed back through the terminal corridors, envisioning the changes he would announce at the next company meeting. He felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was not just CEO. He was a husband who wanted his wife and every passenger to feel valued. Outside, he paused by the gate where Aisha's flight would arrive. He watched as passengers disembarked, their faces lit by relief or weariness. He felt his heart beat faster as he thought of Aisha walking down that jet bridge. He imagined her eyes brightening when she saw him. He adjusted his tie and walked toward the ground-level elevator that would take him to baggage claim. Meanwhile, Aisha's flight descended over the skyline of New York City. The plane banked gently, and she felt the engines slow. She sat beside Marcus on the flight, but now she returned home to stand on solid ground. She gripped her purse strap tightly as the plane touched down. The cabin lights dimmed, and the flight attendants began tidying trays. Aisha straightened her scarf and smoothed her hair. She felt a flutter of excitement at seeing Marcus in person. When the plane doors opened, Aisha walked down the aisle, clutching her coat. She stepped out onto the jet bridge and saw Marcus waiting by the exit. He wore a broad smile, one that made her heart leap. He hurried toward her, and she met him halfway. They embraced tightly, his arms wrapping around her as if he would never let go. Passengers nearby paused to smile at the reunion. I missed you, he whispered in her ear. She laughed softly, her voice bright. Feels good to be home, she said. He led her toward the luggage carousel, and they walked side by side. The hum of the airport felt like music. They collected her bag and stepped into the arrival hall, where sunlight streamed through high windows. Out front, a black car awaited. The driver opened the door for them, and Aisha slid inside with Marcus beside her. She felt the leather seat cool under her. The car pulled away, the city streets rushing past. Marcus held her hand gently on her lap. She smiled and looked at him. Thank you for what you did, she said, her voice soft with gratitude. You didn't have to go through all that. He squeezed her hand. I did, he said simply. Because you matter. They rode in silence for a moment, both lost in thought. Then Marcus reached over and touched her face. Let's go to our favorite bistro, he said. I've reserved our corner table. Tonight we celebrate properly, she leaned into his hand and smiled. That evening, they arrived at a small French bistro tucked under twinkling lights. The hostess greeted them by name and led them to a cozy table against a window. Soft music played in the background, and candles flickered. On each tabletop, Marcus and Aisha held hands across the table. He ordered their favorite dishes, a delicate fish in lemon butter sauce for her, steak with rosemary potatoes for him, and a bottle of chilled champagne. Guess. Marcus looked into her eyes. Sorry you had a rough start, he said. She laughed, her eyes shining. It turned out perfect, she replied, because you turned it into a story of care. He raised his glass again. To us, he said. She clinked her glass gently against his. They ate slowly, savoring each bite in each moment. They spoke of their dreams, their plans, and the changes they would make together. Aisha talked about starting a fund to help children pursue their dreams, and Marcus agreed to support it through. The airline's charity arm spoke of next year's anniversary trip and how they would celebrate it even more simply, perhaps close to home, but always together. When dessert arrived, a creamy creme brulee with a perfectly caramelized Aisha tilted her spoon and scooped a small bite. She closed her eyes as the sweetness melted on her tongue. Marcus watched her and smiled, grateful that the day had ended not in hurt, but in hope. They left the bistro hand in hand and walked along the quiet streets, the city lights painting golden reflections on the wet pavement They passed a park where a few children played under a statue of a young girl with wings. Aisha stopped and looked at the statue, thinking of how small mistakes could grow into something beautiful when met with kindness and care. Marcus wrapped his arm around her shoulders and drew her close. She rested her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. Together, they walked toward home, ready to face tomorrow with renewed love and a promise to treat every person, in every seat, with the respect they deserved. Marcus and Aisha arrived home under the glow of the porch light. The door opened to the soft hum of air from the entryway. Moonlight spilled through the windows, painting gentle shapes on the floor. Aisha slipped off her heels and felt the cool wood under her feet. She took off her coat and hung it in the hall closet. Marcus followed, closing the door behind them with a quiet click. They moved into the living room, where their dog, Luna, lay curled on a blanket. At the sound of their footsteps, Luna lifted her head and wagged her tail. Aisha knelt down and stroked Luna's soft fur. "We're home," she whispered. Luna gave a happy bark and hopped up, licking Aisha's hand. Marcus crossed the room and patted Luna on the head. He looked at Aisha with a smile. In the kitchen, they found the lights dimmed and the table set with a simple vase of flowers. A candle flickered in the center. Aisha's breath caught at the sight. She reached for Marcus's hand. "You set this up?" she asked softly. He nodded. "I thought, after such a day, we might like a quiet moment here." She sank into a chair and he pulled a second one beside her. He had prepared a small plate of fruit and cheese. Each piece was cut neatly. Poured them a glass of sparkling water with a slice of lemon. Aisha smiled and took the glass. The bubbles tickled her nose as she breathed in the fresh scent. They ate slowly, tasting the sweet grapes and creamy cheese. The world outside felt 1,000 miles away. Marcus leaned back and watched Aisha. Her eyes shone in the candlelight. He thought of the hours they had just shared, the pain, the fix, the celebration, and the long night they still had before morning came. "Aisha," he said, his voice soft, "I want to tell you more about what I did today after I left you at the lounge." She looked at him with interest. He continued, "Met with our head of training. We decided to hold workshops for every flight attendant. We will use real stories like yours to teach empathy and care." Aisha listened, her fingers tracing the edge of her glass. She felt moved that her experience would help others learn. "That means they'll think twice before judging any passengers," she said. Marcus nodded. "Exactly. We want every crew member to remember that every passenger is someone with feelings, a story, and expectations. No one should ever feel less than they paid for." She smiled at his words. She felt proud of him, proud that he used his power kindly. She leaned forward and squeezed his hand. "This will make a difference," she said, returned her squeeze, and took a berry from her plate, offering it to her. She accepted and ate it, laughing at the sweetness. After a moment, Marcus stood and moved to the sideboard. He picked up a small box wrapped in blue paper. Aisha tilted her head in surprise. "What's this?" she asked. He came back to her and knelt beside her chair. He held out the box. "For you." She took it and felt its weight. She untied the ribbon and peeled back the paper. Inside lay a leather journal with her initials embossed on the cover. The leather was soft and the pages inside were thick and creamy. She opened it and saw her name printed in elegant letters on the first page. "I thought, Marcus said that you might like a place to write your thoughts, to record your dreams, your ideas, and your stories. You inspire me every day, and I want you to have this." Tears sprang to Aisha's eyes. "Oh." She ran her finger over the embossing. "It's beautiful," she whispered. She hugged Marcus tightly. He held her close and rested his chin on her head. They stayed like that for a moment, wrapped in the comfort of home and love. When they pulled apart, Aisha opened the journal. To the first blank page, she touched the smooth paper and thought of what she might write. She looked at Marcus and smiled. "I'm going to fill this with good things," she said. He nodded. "I know you will." They moved to the couch, and Aisha curled beside him with the journal on her lap. She wrote the date at the top of the page, June 26, 2025, and began a sentence. Today I learned that mistakes can become moments of care. She paused and looked at Marcus, who brushed her hair away from her face. I want to read what? You write? He said. Aisha laughed softly. It's my voice, she replied. But someday you can read it. He nodded and wrapped his arm around her shoulders. They settled into comfortable quiet. The candle burned low, and Luna lay at their feet, content. Aisha wrote a few more lines, then closed the journal and set it on the coffee table. The clock on the wall ticked softly. Marcus glanced at it. It's late, he said. She looked and saw that it was nearly midnight. She stretched and yawned. I should rest, she said. He stood and offered her his hand. She took it, and he led her upstairs. They reached the bedroom, where soft light spilled through the curtains. The bed was made with crisp sheets. Aisha slipped under the covers, and Marcus tucked the blanket around her. He kissed her forehead. Good night, my love, he whispered. Good night, she replied, her voice a calm echo in the room. He turned off the lamp and left only the moonlight. Aisha lay back and closed her eyes. She thought of the day's journey, the surprise, the hurt, the rescue, and the promise of change. She felt gratitude for Marcus's love and strength. Felt a gentle peace as she drifted towards sleep. Below her, Marcus checked the study light one last time. He looked at the journal on the desk and thought of her words. He felt hope for the airline, for his team, and for their family. He whispered into the quiet room, "We will do better." Then he turned off the light and joined Aisha in sleep. Outside, the world continued turning. Planes prepared for tomorrow's flights. People around the city drifted through their nights. But in this home, two hearts rested fully, bound by care and the promise to lift others with kindness. And in the soft hush of this moment, their story of love and change found its true rest, ready to begin again with the dawn. Marcus woke early to the soft glow of morning light filtering through the curtains. He slipped quietly from the bed so as not to wake Aisha. He walked to the study, where the leather journal lay open on the desk. He read her first lines. Today, I learned that mistakes can become moments of care. He felt a swell of pride and love. He closed the journal gently and walked back to the bedroom. Aisha stirred as he climbed back into bed beside her. She opened her eyes and smiled at his calm face. He brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. Good morning, he whispered. She sat up and stretched, then reached for his hand. Good morning, she replied. They lay side by side for a moment, savoring the quiet before the day began. Over breakfast, they sat at their small kitchen table. Luna sat at Aisha's feet. Wagging her tail in hopes of a scrap, Aisha poured coffee into 2 mugs, while Marcus arranged fresh fruit on a plate. The morning air drifted through the open window, carrying the distant hum of cars and the chirping of birds. After they ate, Marcus stood and took Aisha's hand. I want you to come with me to the company meeting today, he said. She looked at him in surprise. Are you sure? It's a big crowd, he nodded. I want you there. I want them too. See why this matters? She hesitated, then smiled. Okay, let's do it together. They arrived at headquarters just as the employees were gathering in the main conference hall. A large screen displayed the airline's logo. Rows of chairs filled quickly with cabin crew, ground staff, and office teams. The air felt warm. With expectation, Marcus and Aisha walked down the center aisle, and people turned to greet them. Some clapped softly. Others nodded. A hush fell as Marcus took the podium. He looked around the hall, then at Aisha standing beside him. He cleared his throat. Good morning, everyone, he began. His voice carried the calm authority they knew, but also a warmth. Today I want to share a story that reminds us why our work matters. He paused, then told them about Aisha's flight, how she'd been offered the wrong meal in first class. He spoke of her quiet dignity, her calm acceptance, and the hurt in her heart. He described how they had fixed the mistake and how her experience had become a lesson for all. He watched his team as he spoke. He saw their faces soften with understanding. He told them of the new procedures, the catering checklist, the empathy workshops, the senior manager on-call roster. He spoke of bias training, of listening to every passenger's story, of treating each person as they would want to be treated. Then he turned and took Aisha's hand. "Here is the person at the center of this story," he said. Forward, feeling a flutter in her chest. The room was silent. Marcus squeezed her hand and said, "Aisha, would you say a few words?" She nodded and turned to face the team. She took a breath. "Thank you all for caring," she said in her clear voice. I was surprised when I could not have the meal I paid for. But what mattered most was how the situation was fixed. I saw kindness in the apology, and I felt love when Marcus made it right. I want every passenger to feel that way." Her eyes shone with sincerity. We can all make mistakes, but we can also choose to make them moments of care. That choice is ours every day. A gentle wave of applause filled the room. Some employees wiped tears from their eyes. Others nodded, their expressions earnest. Marcus and Aisha stepped down from the stage together. Later that afternoon, the airline's website published a message, a lesson in care, how one moment sparked change. It told the story in a few paragraphs and outlined the new policies. Passengers saw it, and many praised the honesty and commitment. Social media lights up with comments of support. Aisha smiled when she saw the comments, feeling proud that her experience would help others. That evening, at home, Marcus and Aisha sat on the balcony. They held mugs of tea and watched the sky turn pink and orange as the sun set. The luna lay at their feet, exhausted from waiting by the door all day. Aisha leaned against Marcus's shoulder. "I never thought my mix-up would reach so many people," she said softly. He kissed her temple. "You made it meaningful," he replied. "You reminded us all why we do this." She looked into his eyes. "I'm glad we did it together," she said. He smiled. Always together. They stayed on the balcony, talking about their plans. Aisha spoke of writing more in her journal, stories of kindness she had seen or heard. Marcus promised to support her writing and to keep caring for every passenger as he cared for her. Night settled around them, and stars appeared above. The world beyond their balcony was quiet. They felt grateful for the day's journey, from disappointment to action, from hurt to hope. They knew that each flight the airline operated would now carry not only passengers and meals, but also the promise of respect and care born from a simple, real-life moment. As they went inside to sleep, Aisha placed her journal on the bedside table. She wrote one more line. "Together, we can turn mistakes into kindness." She closed the journal and turned out the lamp. Marcus reached for her hand in the dark. She felt its warmth and strength. She rested her head beside his and closed her eyes. The gentle rhythm of his breathing carried her into sleep. In the quiet of the night, the promise they made echoed softly, to listen, to care, and to remember. That every person is someone with a story that matters. And in that promise, their true life story found its greatest meaning.